He's messed up right underneath my feet. I was in the bathroom now. Oh, it's like an extra room. I was like, I got it. I need it. No, it's good on my back.
So you go back there and
Where are you staying tonight? No, sorry. I will be there tomorrow.
tomorrow Sunday. You're not going to do Wednesday.
No, I'm going today, but I will also be there tonight. And Wednesday.
And you're on Tuesday.
Yes, due next month. My due date is Tuesday, and our work student night is Wednesday. Yes, no calls all night. That was great for student night.
It doesn't sound like it's wrong.
No, just, but it happens to most often on Tuesday. Although when I woke up after like 45 minutes after doing my initial call, so, but nobody else was as early as I was. So the call was getting done right since. Yeah. I think one I did 3 or 4 calls. What? Oh, yes. Well, we just picked one, we had to pick one but during the day, I think one person I will, she will see it when she's here. Yeah, she's, in top 3 in the, like, it is a resource, right? I think so, there's a big captain, one of our friends are like possibly. Her decorative skills are really fun. Yes. Right. I think I'm your spot. We were just talking about it better.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming today. My name is John Glidden, and I'm Roger's son-in-law. I've been a proud member of the Benson family for the last 28 years. We're here today to celebrate Roger's life. We're going to hear from several family members who were inspired by his life. And then we invite you to join the Benson family for lunch at Go Fish in Mystic down the road here at Mystic Village, following a graveside ceremony that we're going to have after the service. We're in Mystic today because this is where Ann grew up. This is where Roger met Ann's parents, and is where he asked her parents for her hand in marriage. They got married in the Baptist church here. This cemetery is where Ann's family is buried, and where Roger is now buried in the family plot. It is a pleasure to be here, and I hope you all feel that pleasure. Now I'm going to ask you to refer to your program and look for America the Beautiful, where the family has selected several stanzas that we will all sing together. For heroes prove in liberating strife, who more than self their country love, and mercy more than love. America, may all thy glory fly, and all success be nobleness, and every pain divine. Oh, beautiful for patriot that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, keep once again. Please be seated. I'd like to take just a moment out of the ceremony for Roger and recognize the deep sympathies of the Benson family for Joanne Kroll. Joanne is the mother of Brad Kroll, who's here today, and mother-in-law of Kim Kroll, and the grandmother of Anna, Katie, and Will Kroll. You have the deep sympathies of the Benson family. So I would now like to introduce Anna Kroll, Roger's granddaughter, who's going to read a scripture.
Thank you. I will be reading a section of the scripture from John chapter 17, verses 6 through 11. I have revealed you to those whom you gave me out of this world. They were yours. You gave them to me, and they obeyed your word. Now they know that everything you have given me comes from you. For I have gave them the words you gave me, and they accepted them. They knew with certainty that I came from you, and they believed that you had sent me. I pray for them. I am not praying for the world, but for those you have given me, for they are yours. All I have is yours, and all you have is mine. And glory has come to me through them. I will remain in the world no longer, but they are still in the world, and I am coming to you. Holy Father, protect them by the power of your name, the name you gave me, so that they may be one as we are now one. Now, can you please join me in saying the Lord's Prayer, please? Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Now I'd like to introduce Katie Kroll, who's going to sing. Katie is Roger's granddaughter.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose love has bound the restless wave, who break the mighty ocean deep, with sound of kind limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. O Trinity of love and power, all travelers guiding angels are, from rock and tempest, flying foam, protect them where sorrow they come. Blessed Lord, shall rise to thee, the peace from air and land and sea.
Now, as tribute to her dad, I'll ask Kim Kroll to address us. Kim's Roger's daughter.
Buckle in. There we go. As I stand here in front of you, I find myself feeling as though I have some very big shoes to fill. And on that note, whenever my dad did a eulogy, he did something like he wore a Red Sox cap for my Aunt Mart because she was a big Red Sox fan. I'm wearing flip-flops because he wore sneakers all the time, even at my wedding. My dad was a masterful storyteller, and that indeed included him being a talented eulogist. I actually learned quite a bit about my dad when I listened to him deliver eulogies of beloved relatives. He was an extravagant storyteller with an unusually keen memory for details. And it wasn't so much that I learned during the tributes that he gave at funerals that he was good at recalling details. Rather, it was that I started to see him reveal more layers of who the whole Roger Dale Bensen was, layers that perhaps he purposely had kept hidden from us when we were young kids. Dad had countless defining moments, adventures, and encounters that I would love to touch upon today, but honestly, we 4 kids often wondered about and maybe even doubted the veracity of some of his innumerable exhilarating moments. Seeing German subs torpedoed off Florida at the age of 5, inadvertently ending up in a room of dictators full of dictators at age 20, going to business school with not only 1 but 2 people who had held the world records for the half mile, randomly sitting next to someone in Portugal who not only also grew up in Warwick, New York, but also used to live in the same house that Dad grew up in. The list of almost fantastical stories entertainingly goes on, but there's no way I could recount them all to you now. So instead, I'd like to take you on a walk through Dad's life using some key themes as guideposts, making a few stops along the way to visit some special moments and some of the extraordinary aspects of Roger. Dad was an enigma on many levels. His sense of adventure and his why not attitude didn't really square with his fondness for control. His life-defining and supremely satisfying accomplishment of being the best ship handler on his naval destroyer is mismatched with the fact that he rarely spent time on the water before or after being in the Navy. His deep enjoyment of an edgy joke or unabashedly shedding tears when sharing an emotional story in his later years contrasted sharply with his undeterringly strict and orderly rules when we were growing up. He taught us always to exude exceptional character, but he was often most entertained by those who were characters. His role as social chair in business school and as hosting of rockin' annual Groundhog Day parties diverged from his countless hours, 7 days a week, at his desk doing constant market analysis right up into his dying days. Roger was a complicated man driven by remarkably uncomplicated motivations. He was an original. To my mind, underpinning most of his actions was one of these few elemental motivating forces: family, success and achievement, respect and trust. Regardless of the clarity of his motivations, though, Dad often was one to surprise with an unexpected reaction, skill, experience, or gift. So my first guidepost to bring you to is family. Roger grew up with a great respect for the humble beginnings and pride in the hard work of his parents, often telling the stories of the early years of George and Florence. Delivering by horse and wagon 25 to 100-pound blocks of ice for people's ice boxes, and managing an ice cream shop at night, George held 2 jobs while attending Boston University. Florence curtailed her studies at Columbia University to take care of her mother prior to transferring to Boston University, where she was one of the first women admitted to the business program. The 2 met, they fell in love, they got married, they moved to New York to help run and eventually take over Florence's father's W.F. Dayton 5 and dime stores. Roger grew up working at the store, observing and absorbing his parents' sense of work ethic, duty to family, and strong faith. Dad took on the mantle of the man of the house when Grandpa joined the Navy Supply Corps during World War II and moved to Washington, D.C. This is a moment that sets the stage for one of my favorite stories of Dad's youth, because it provides an image of even young Roger taking on the big responsibility of protecting his family. One night, while already tucked into bed, he was startled by a noise that he thought might be the Nazis infiltrating their home. Fortunately, as he was wont to do every night, 9-year-old Roger had his trusty bow and arrow primed. Unfortunately, and I can't quite envision how this worked, He had the quiver pointing in the wrong direction, unleashing the mighty arrow right past his own head into his headboard. This is a verified story since my brother Todd grew up sleeping with that headboard, arrow hole and all. The story is cute, but it also underscores Roger's willingness to just step up and take on responsibilities likely far beyond his years or training. This tenacity and can-do attitude figured prominently throughout his life. Despite a 5-year difference and high school years spent in separate boarding schools, Roger loved having a younger sister. Sandy, you and Dad have quite different personalities and temperaments, but the love of learning and the value of education shared by the two of you has always been palpable. He had a great respect for you, Sandy, and he was very, very proud to have you as his little sister. Leapfrogging forward, though Dad did not date much, he knew who he wanted to marry. We kids have heard many times about the lurking that Roger did around the Harvard Business School financial aid office just to meet Anne, who was the secretary to the dean of financial aid, and about their disastrous first date. But Mom saw something magnetic about Dad that implored her to go on a second date. And their love led them to get married right here in Mystic 62 years ago today. Growing up, I remembered not always understanding Dad's rules, but it was clear that they were mostly to keep us safe or to help us become good people, and that they were always to be followed. I remember only 3 times that I, in poor judgment, talked back to him. To give you a flavor, once when I was 10 years old, I felt Dad was unfairly telling me that I was not owning up to my responsibilities. And so I blurted out, "You have no idea how much stress I'm dealing with." I did not at the time understand the lecture that I subsequently received, but as I look back now, I realize the bear market of '77 probably had something to do with it. Dad had a tendency to teach by a metaphor. His 2 most often metaphorical references were the stock market and baseball. As a fan of baseball, and let's face it, as a kid, I preferred the latter. Now, as an adult, I wish I had recordings of the stock market metaphors. I would love to now understand what he was trying to teach me about the world through his market references. I'll wrap up my ponderings about Dad and family with these special moments that will always stick with me. The depth of love for Mom. You can't live together, raise a family together, rely 100% on an entrepreneurial business that is rooted in speculative worlds of stock market and oil and natural gas drilling without having some differences of opinions. That said, any moment that Mom wasn't feeling well, or even if Mom traveled to Quechee while Dad stayed in Connecticut, you could hear the clarity of Dad's love for you. Mom's right up through the stories he told in his final days. You are the one person in this world that Dad called the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. His final gift to you, Mom, was showing you how much he trusted and respected and relied on you to take the lead from here. A depth of love for his kids. The enigma in Dad didn't necessarily let him show us when we were young that we were, in fact, his primary driving force. He thrived off of being the provider and the procurer, and he did that for us in spades, including excellent education, access to cutting-edge technology, wonderfully memorable family trips, and an insatiable love of learning. But it was when we became adults that it was clear how much who we are was simply what brought Dad the greatest joy of his life. Dad loved that Todd rapidly excelled in investment banking, adventured around the world with Fiona, and was an outstanding athlete in almost any sport. Dad loved Brooke's artistry and creativity, and her dedication and her knowledge to health and wellness, and her devotion to the family that she and John have raised. Dad loved expertly trading sports stats and knowledge with Britt like it was a different language. He loved the special bond that they shared through the Taft School, and he admired Britt's entrepreneurial spirit and foresight in creating his own product when industry wasn't adapting fast enough. Dad loved me so much that he took me to a Yankees game despite his intense dislike of the Yankees. just so that I could see Bucky Dent play in person. He took Brooke and me to a Sean Cassidy concert at Madison Square Garden when I was 11 years old. Now that's parental dedication. But I truly know how much he loved watching me succeed in business and the joy that Brad and I have shared in raising our family. The first time that I realized the true depth of my dad's love for his kids was when I was in high school. I happened to be at the top of the stairs when Brooke and Todd drove out the driveway heading off to Dartmouth for the first time. Dad didn't realize I was there, which is probably why it's the first time I ever saw him cry. He walked into the living room, he sat on the piano bench, held his head in his hands, and he just wept. He just wept. There was no question in the love he had for us kids, but that was the first time that I saw how deep a hold it had on him. Dad was equally filled with the joy and pride in each of his 4 grandchildren, Johnny, Anna, Katie, and Will. In fact, he was so proud, I think he truly believed all the embellishments he added to the grandkids' stories that he told his buddies and acquaintances. He just genuinely knew to his core that his grandchildren would be story-worthy. He just loved each of you guys so much. Shifting gears, I will more briefly mention Roger's motivator of success and achievement. 2 quick moments come to mind. I once played Trivial Pursuit with Dad. He went first. In that one turn, he won all the pieces and made it up to the hub. Forget letting your kid win. He didn't even let me have a chance to roll the die. And my second short anecdote revealing Dad's view of success and achievement is from when I was 16. I unwisely tried to argue with him that average was acceptable, to which he replied in a way that indicated there would be no further discussion. Bensons are not average. With his photographic memory and exceedingly quick and analytical mind, Dad was unfulfilled by his early education, challenged and motivated by his high school education at Taft, invigorated by his college education at Dartmouth, and fueled by his business school education at Harvard. But perhaps most life-defining was his time in the U.S. Navy, particularly his time on the USS Harwood. At age 22, he learned to step up, and in his words, he realized that you can do more than you think you can. To give you the best insight into how and why this experience meant so much to him, I'm actually going to read to you now part of an email that Dad wrote to me just 6 years ago, so 60 years after the actual events. Excuse me. So in the words of Dad, in the summer of 1957, the Navy granted me my request for a transfer from the Office of Naval Intelligence in the Pentagon to a destroyer in the Atlantic Fleet. I arrived aboard the USS Harwood DDE 861 in Newport, Rhode Island on a Saturday. And 2 days later, Monday, we were on our way with the other 5 destroyers in our battle squadron to 6 months' duty in the Mediterranean. The Cold War with Russia was on at the time, with threats of war in the Med, but no actual fighting between Russia and the US. But of course, there was fighting between the Arabs and the Jews. Egypt had fallen into the Russian sphere of influence, and there was fear that Russians wanted to take control of the Med to give them warm water access to the Atlantic for their Navy, which had little access during the winter because of the ice in the north. I very quickly learned how to handle the ship and became the officer of the deck in command of the ship for all special occasions, including general quarters, battle stations, refueling at sea, entering and leaving port, complicated maneuvers, navigation, and so on. Pretty exciting stuff for a 22-year-old kid who had never had a rowboat or a sailboat. And that was just an email from my dad. Always had a history lesson with him. Dad loved the underdog story. Could be a penny stock that becomes a blue chip, or an athlete from a tiny school who wins the state championship. I think he felt a little bit like he was viewed as the underdog in his child hometown, and yet he knew that he had the determination and the mental superpower to go big. So to him, the stock market and the oil and natural gas drilling were a natural fit. Both are speculative, both require some upfront investment, both require a stomach to potentially lose your shirt, both could lead you to life-changing success, and both require some skill and some luck. So Both are a level playing field for the average investor or speculator. But again, to Dad, Bensons are not average, so Dad saw those fields as ones where he could go for the fences. In his later years, partly because he saw his 4 children and his 4 grandchildren each define success and fulfillment in different ways, Dad began to appreciate more and more, not just the value of succeeding in business, but the joy of life. Dad wrote to me in 2011, "Life is about succeeding and succeeding generations." I love that thought. Finally, a little bit about the remarkable weight of importance Roger put on trust and respect. Roger grew up professionally in the stock market during the era where you need to start your workday by reading the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and the New York Times on the bifold while riding the train, and read it corner to corner to pick up any possible market trends, gaps, or newcomers. Be adept at technical analysis and reading stock charts, and truly, fully rely on the verbal commitment or handshake when making a deal. In Dad's mind, there were 3 kinds of people in business: good, smart people that you want to do business with, and the rest were either dumb or crooks. This led to one of his other enigmatic contradictions. Dad was often suspicious of people's motives and dubious of their ability to meet expectations. However, if you impressed Roger, then you earned his unwavering trust. And that degree of trust and respect was remarkable, as was Roger's generosity that he showed in response. The trust and respect could be for anyone at any level. As an example, on the business side was his belief that women deserved every opportunity afforded to men. And as such, he was one of the first men on Wall Street to regularly hire bright women onto his research team back in the 60s. A simple but very touching and illustrative example of Dad rewarding deep trust and respect came on the his second to last day, when the EMS transport crew confidently but delicately brought Dad home from the hospital and set him up at his at-home hospice hospital bed, a place where no one wants to be. And yet the crew did so completely maintaining Dad's dignity and offering some comforting and buoyant humor. Despite Dad's rapidly weakening state, he made sure to shake hands with each one of them, ask them if they would like something to drink, and then instructed Brooke and me to make sure that we gave each of them a thank you gift. Similarly, I don't think a good doctor's visit or a bank teller's interaction went by when he didn't offer a bottle of wine or a lobster roll and extend a handshake and thanks. If you got a handshake from Roger, that was special. Thank you all for joining us here today in person or virtually to honor Roger. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this tribute with you. For any of you who had the opportunity to chat with Dad recently, you know that he had a mental Rolodex of stories, often landing on the same ones that had become his favorites. And occasionally, if you were lucky, a new one popped up every now and then. Amazingly, when I did fact checking, even the fantastical new ones seemed to all be grounded in historical fact. The repetitiveness of Dad's storytelling, I see now, had 2 clear purposes. One, so that he could pass on to his next chapter, knowing that he had cemented these moments most important to him into the minds of others, so that those moments could continue to live on. And 2, replaying those stories in my mind with others like I'm doing here today will help me fill that gaping hole that his death has left within me. Similarly, his increased love of music over the last few years, his focus on patriotic and Dixieland music, and his shockingly recently discovered desire to sing, I think has cemented infinite possibilities of me filling that gaping hole with smiles every time I catch wind of a patriotic song or Dixieland jazz song. I hope that you all will soak in the wonderful music played for us today throughout the service and afterward by the graveside. I'm certain that Roger is listening, keeping time with his right hand, and I hope singing along. As one of Roger's longtime stock market buddies said, crushed to hear the news of his death, "Oh, he was supposed to be the indestructible one." Having beaten 2 types of cancer and a ruptured brain aneurysm, he nearly was destructible. But as Mom said after he peacefully passed away, Dad decided to put it in our hands. Dad, thank you for all that you have given us. The generosity, intellect, and curiosity that you have shared with us is boundless. Thank you for believing so much in me that I felt comfortable going out into the world with an attitude of, I might not know how to do that yet, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. If I were to merge together some of your metaphorical messages, Dad, I think they'd be strung together like this. Keep your eye on the ball, cover your bases, play in the big league, always be willing to go into extra innings, swing for the fences, and you'll knock the cover off that ball. We will continue on in your legacy, your rooting for the underdog, your insatiable quest for learning, your of course you can do it attitude, and your deep, deep love of family and golden retrievers. Well done, Dad. You did it. Love you always. Bye for now.
Now we're going to hear from Will Kroll, Roger's grandson.
Fill not your hearts with pain and sorrow, but remember me in every tomorrow. Remember the joy, the laughter, the smiles. I've only gone to rest a little while. Although my leaving causes pain and grief, my going has eased my hurt and given me relief. So dry your eyes and remember me, not as I am now, but as I used to be. Because I will remember you all and look on with a smile. Understand, in your hearts, I've only gone to rest a little while. As long as I have the love of each of you, I can live my life in the hearts of all of you.
Now we'll hear from Roger Bensen. Sorry. I lost my place in the program. We're going to sing "Great Is Thy Faithfulness," and you'll find the words inside your program. Springtime and harvest, sun and stars in the courses above, join all nature in witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sins and the peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and my hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine will tell
Great is thy faithfulness, morning by morning, mercies I see. Great is thy faithfulness,
Now we'll hear from Brooklyn, Roger's daughter, and a few reflections.
So one of my dad's favorite words you heard from Kim was procure. He loved and delighted in giving. I remember his 50th birthday when we all had gifts for him. He said, I thank you individually, I have thank you collectively, and now I have something for you. I don't recall what he had for us, but I do recall the joy he had in giving us items. One of the things he liked most to do was bring home a plant from ShopRite. He would also like to have a fact about something. So the oranges he brought home to mom or the blueberries that he'd give to me, he'd say, these blueberries are from Chile. But oftentimes I would take him to the grocery store and there would be orchids in the front floral section. He said, pick out one of the colors that you don't already have. So in the years to come, I know I'll wonder, what would Dad think of this situation? But right now, he's thinking, thank you for being here. I have an orchid for you. So after the service here, pick out an orchid and bring it home with you. In the weeks before Dad passed, I saw his decline in health. I knew what was coming. It helped to inform my family about what was coming, and especially in the few days ahead of his passing, I knew that he would see his last blue sky pretty soon. This is something we like to notice and remark upon. Oh, it's the blue sky day. I knew it was coming, but once he passed away, I found myself utterly unprepared. I felt crushed, shattered even. And I thought, I got to do something about this. I got to put myself back together. Dad always supported my artistic efforts and my creativity, and I thought there's got to be something I could do. And like with the clear blue sky, I remembered an ancient Japanese art form called kintsugi. It means golden joinery. And centuries ago, people's prime possessions were their pots and their bowls that they served food in. And if one broke, they had to repair it. And eventually became an art form because they prepared it with molten gold. So I thought, this is something I can do. I can teach myself kintsugi. My first efforts actually fell apart again. But what you see down here is a vase that I did this week. And I think it's something that Dad would really appreciate for a number of reasons. The art form has become metaphoric, a poetic metaphor for love your faults, embrace your scars, don't hide what made you broken, and then you heal. It's metaphoric for healing, and Dad loved a good metaphor, especially when one made sense to him. He thought of it as an intelligent metaphor, so I think he would love that. The other reason why I think he would love it is a memory that came to me while I was doing this. It's kind of meditative while you're putting the pieces back together and waiting for things to dry. I saw Dad take out a broken wood cutting board. It's about this big from the garbage. Been used so much to slice tomatoes and whatnot, it split in the middle. And he said, what's this doing in the garbage? And I said, well, it's broken. And he took it out. He said, this is a symbol of our marriage. So Dad felt if you decided to buy something at one point, there was a reason, and there was no need to throw it out ever. He thought of why he bought something, and he wanted to keep it. So the idea of repairing something that's broken would be meaningful to him. So now in Dad's passing, since he supported me so much with my creative efforts, he won't be there to do that now, but he's inspired me to find new ways to grow and to learn and to experience life through my creativity and especially to heal. That's what I have to say.
I'd like to thank the speakers, family members. It's not easy to get up and talk about your father or grandfather. And so today I have had much of the courage to stand in front of you, celebrate Roger's life. For it is his life that speaks, not his death. It is his courage that he showed that speaks. And it is his hope and belief in the goodness of all people that speaks. I first met Roger 29 years ago. And like most men, I had butterflies in my stomach when I was introduced to my future. He had a commanding presence, and he was well versed in the fields. He was not an individual to argue with. And with my finally realizing that, we got along just fine. He advised me well in my business, for which I'm most appreciative. And we found that we enjoyed exchanging lip balms and wine and continue to do so for many years. And so now I'm here with you, Roger's family and friends, reading these words with a deep sadness in my heart. But we all feel honored and special for knowing the person that Roger was. He showed us that no matter how hard life can be, we must all learn from it every day and embrace every moment of it, because we never know how or when it's all going to end. Roger embraced tenacity, compassion, and selflessness, just the way we all yearn to. And he once said to me, quoting a hero of his, "Lives are like rivers. Eventually, you go where they're meant, but not where you want to go." Roger, you're gone today, but I look forward to the day when I will see you again. Rest easy, my friend. You fought so well. You inspired so many. You loved so deeply. You lived so loudly. No one that ever knew you can ever forget you. Roger Bensen, Godspeed. And Godspeed to your memory. Now, in just a moment, we're going to hear the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and after which I'm going to ask the Benson family to follow the band out and walk to the gravesite down here where we're going to meet an honor guard, and please, the rest of us, join us behind the Benson family, and we'll all go out there. We don't have words to Battle Hymn of the Republic, but it was Roger's favorite song, so we'll listen to the youth.
Face. 4, 1. Aim. Dead. Go. Order. On.